So the next item on the council agenda is 11.2 living wage, page 28. 11.5. No, 11.3 MOU. 11.3 MOU. The adoption of a memorandum of partnership, memorandum of understanding with Kāpiti Youth Support. Hang on, we'll just let staff introduce. Settle down, everybody. We'll just let staff introduce the report, please. This has been quite a lot of work for council staff working with Kāpiti Youth Support to come up with this long-awaited document. Thank you.
Kia ora. I appreciate that everyone will want to do this quickly, so I was just going to take the report as read. I did just want to note, though, that the KYS does provide vital services to the district, and I believe that the MOU will further strengthen our relationship with rangatahi at the heart of that. We have been working collaboratively on it to get to where we have got to with the MOU. It is worth noting that by and large it is an operational level MOU, but within that there is a set out requirement of a meeting with the board, KYS board, councillors, the mayor and senior staff once a year, and that will just be an opportunity to note how the relationship's going and make sure that it's working for everybody. Our intention here was to make sure that council approved it and then asked to delegate authority to the mayor to sign it at a time that works for everybody.
That sounds lovely. So congratulations on creating something that works for everybody here. I think it's really fantastic and will solidify and strengthen our relationship with Kāpiti Youth Support, which will be beneficial to both organisations and to our community. So do I have any questions?
Thank you very much. I think this is well overdue. Item number 15 on page 36, perceived as favouritism towards Kāpiti Youth Support. It's not a criticism, but I actually don't see it as a favouritism to Kāpiti Youth Support either, because this is something that council actually needs to do and should be doing. So
I think that's a comment rather than a question.
Well,
yeah,
it is,
but thank you. Thank you. No, we just...
Thank you.
Whatever works for us this afternoon. Councillor Coe.
Oh, look, I wanted to follow on the same tack and just, look, I think KYS is absolutely fabulous and I've supported them in lots of different ways and I think we're really lucky to have them. I just wish to ask whether this would disadvantage any other group within the community, and hopefully it may lead to other MOUs with other groups as well. So I just wanted to check that it wasn't going to have some sort of exclusivity around it.
No, it won't. Yeah, it's not indicating that we will exclusively be working with KYS in this space, and so we are open to working with other organisations.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, just reiterating the same thing, that MOUs are to be encouraged wherever possible, organisations that we're working with, so that the organisation knows what its expectations are of us and we know what our expectations are of them, particularly where there's funding involved as well.
Yeah, very good. I think that's a comment rather than a question.
Question?
Yeah, it's a useful document to have and potentially will provide a little bit of a template for any other future organisations. No. Yes.
May I respond? Definitely an MOU, so in the spirit of a question, could this be something that we use for other organisations? We have a range of different mechanisms in place to help support and further organisations' relationships with a range of organisations, and an MOU is a great option in this instance. It won't always be the right option, and I guess that the point to note there is that we remain open to whatever measures we need to take to strengthen relationships with key organisations in the social and community sector. So we're not wedded to the idea of an MOU being the be-all and end-all.
That's a Very good answer to my question. Councillor Coфord.
Oh, Madam Chair, this is a Patsy question. How long has Kāpiti Youth Support been going on the Kāpiti Coast?
Well, we could ask a former board member of Kāpiti Youth Support to answer that question, or a current board member. Oh, no, maybe not the current board member.
20 years? 20 years, yeah. 21 this year. Okay.
Okay,
beg your pardon, 20
so I've got some
sorry.
sorry to interrupt this lovely trip down memory lane, but I've got some recommendations here on page 35 for A, B, and C. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Coфord. Any debate? We've already had some. Hang on, microphone.
Just as the mover, I would just like to say I thought it was really good from KYS in terms of, that they are completely satisfied. As I asked them, is there anything in here that shouldn't be, or is there anything out of here that should be, and they were completely good with that. So, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any further debate? I'll put that motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Congratulations. Thank you for your work. Thank you, Marie. So now we're moving on to 11.5, appointment of Mana Whenua representation on page 140.
Kia ora koutou. Through you, Madam Chair, I'm here to talk about the appointment of the Mana Whenua representative, and I'd like to point out that since the report was written, we've actually been contacted by Ngā Hapu o Ōtaki, and they've also nominated someone for the Strategy, Operations and Finance Committee only at this stage. So if you would like to amend the recommendation, we could do this at this stage. Be a good opportunity. We have provided some wording if that was appropriate.
Potentially, I'll take questions, then we'll get a mover and seconder and see if they're happy with an amendment.
Perfect.
So do I have any questions on this report, including the extra information? Councillor Ko.
Yep. Look, I just wanted to clarify the process here for appointment of people and who are unelected into roles, and I mean that across the board. So if we're appointing someone, for example, onto a committee who has voting rights, who's an unelected member, what is the process for approving that? And should we be given any background information on the person before we agree to it, or is this just a rubber stamping exercise, or what is the correct process, and is there the same process for everybody or a different process when we're talking about iwi representation? Thank you.
So it is a different process depending on the appointment. So there are a couple of appointments that you'll be asked to make for the Risk and Assurance Committee, for example. And if there are more applications than there are roles, you will absolutely be given some CVs and some information to look at to make a decision on who to appoint. When it comes to Mana Whenua representation, under the governance structure, what this council has agreed to is that iwi will nominate someone, and then this council can agree or not agree to appoint that person. But iwi will do the exercise of figuring out who would be most appropriate for them to represent them at the table. So it depends a little bit on which committee, but for each of the different committees, there will be appointment reports coming up to council to actually formalise the appointment, and they all look slightly different. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Well, I just want to query then, on what grounds would we decline this, or say no to this person? Are there any grounds on which we would do that?
In my opinion, having already adopted a governance structure that creates space for this, and in the context of your partnership with Mana Whenua, I would not be aware of any grounds on which you would decline this. It is a procedural requirement that people are appointed. The mechanism that is used to ensure voting rights and things like that, so particularly for strategy, operations and finance, is by an appointment to the committee, and that's essentially what this is.
So in other words, it is a rubber stamping exercise, really.
Procedural. Yeah.
Procedural. Well, yes. Thank you.
It's necessary to bring the paper. Yes. Councillor Cooper.
Have we engaged them as to why? Is there an issue why they haven't appointed? An issue with us? Why they haven't appointed across the committees? Has there been, or is it just simply capacity?
It's capacity
So
and
it's-
timings.
So it's not a lack of engagement from our staff or from us?
No.
Okay,
no.
thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yep. Yeah, I have some concerns around this. I've always thought that these sorts of things, loath as I am to go into public excluded, but there has always been a good reason to go into public excluded for these sorts of things. And whilst this council may not have ever had reasons for declining a name, it doesn't mean that that can't happen. It can. In fact, I can recall certainly one circumstance at Greater Wellington where that in fact happened. And it happened in public excluded, and there was information that was made available during that process that that Aratahi, which was the umbrella group, agreed with, and so that person who was going to be on the committee was no longer on the committee. So, and it's just that whenever we are dealing with an individual person's name, I just think it is safer to be having any kind of discussion in a public excluded. It protects that person. It's not a lack of there's not a lack of transparency, because ultimately once somebody's appointed, they're appointed. But in terms of a mechanism for safety, that's what I would recommend. But anyway, it is what it is.
So, just in response to that, in circumstances where there is a degree of personal information attached, for example, a CV or something like that, we have in the past kept those papers in public excluded for the consideration of those appointments, or and often that's happening when there's more than one CV and there is, there's a bit of toing and froing happening. In this case, because there isn't a lot of personal information included in the report, I'm not confident that we would meet the threshold required to keep something in public excluded.
Councillor Pravanov.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to, so I see this paper has no alternative, and I just want to be quite clear here. So if you look at point 9, it says non-appointed Mana Whenua representatives may attend these meetings with discretion, with speaking rights at the discretion of the mayor. So it's a case of where if Hurawai is unable to attend, then there are only speaking rights. So this also leads on to the big picture. So the first Climate and Environment Subcommittee is at the end of January. I do not believe that there are any council meetings. Are there any council meetings before that? So, yes. So
yes,
there
there's
will
one on
be,
26th.
So there will be some gaps on this committee because these people are not appointed. And does that also refer to members of the community board, or if they choose not to choose a member of the community board, a member of the community? So they have to be all done by appointment agreed to by this council.
Yes, they all have to be appointed by this council, and there is a council meeting on 26th. So if the information is received by that day, then there could be an appointment at that meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right, I don't see any more questions. Do I have somebody to move the recommendation, and then we'll hear about the amendment and we'll see if the mover and seconder will accept. I'm happy to move this from the chair, seconded by Councillor Handford. So the amendment is to add another appointment to one committee only.
So Anna will bring up the recommendation. It would be to add another recommendation that states that Kim Tahiwi from Ngāhapua Otaki will be appointed as the representative to the Strategy, Operations and Finance Committee with voting rights.
I'm happy to accept that amendment. Is that okay with my seconder? Yes, I'm getting nods.
We have also slightly amended the wording of recommendation B, so it includes Ngāti Toa, Rangatira and Ngā Hapua Otaki for remuneration.
Yes, a small amount of words, but a great influence on representation. I'm happy to accept that, and I'm assuming my seconder is. So these are recommendations for A and B on page 140 of the council papers, with the amendments that have been proposed by our Democracy Services staff. That's been moved and seconded. Any debate? Councillor Pravanov,
Oh,
are you
sorry.
in debate or just...
No, sorry.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor.
I'm just probably asking for clarity on Amendment B. We're appointing someone to one committee, yet we're assigning the full amount of the annual fee to Ngā Hapu. I'm not sure that that's technically correct in that amendment, so I would propose that that needs to be adjusted accordingly, or we have to remove this amendment until Ngā Hapu has given us all of their representatives for all of the committees so that that fee can be agreed to.
Sign all this off in the governance document, so we don't necessarily need it here.
I'm just getting some advice on that. Thank you.
It's a note, isn't it?
I've got a suggestion. So at the end of that, at the end of B, we put comma, noting that further appointments to other committees from Ngā Hapu or Otaki will be confirmed in the new year. That says that's not the full extent of what they've committed to, that we expect further appointments from them to meet that meeting fee. Does that fix it or not?
Probably.
Yeah.
You can say what you
I'd prefer to finish off that line of questioning.
So, yes, the further comment I would make is, I think in our previous decision to the governance structure, we already approved this payment to each of the iwi, so I would even suggest that this amendment we don't even need B at all, because we've already approved that in our previous governance structure, that they would be funded an annual fee for the contribution of their representatives at these meetings. So by creating another motion, we're confusing or overlaying on another one that we've already done.
I do think the fee needs to be reaffirmed. I'm not sure. I'll let council staff answer. I'm overstepping.
I think a previous motion, we've already specified it. Whether we need to say it again is the question. I think it just gets confusing.
Yeah, so it's been pointed out by the Chief Executive that this is only for noting. So we is that to say we don't need it, or that it can just stay as it is and it won't really matter? I'm happy to take it out if you feel it's ambiguous and not helpful. I don't think we need it in there.
That would be my preference.
So
But
can we take it
really,
out?
it's up to the others.
That's the other thing. Can we take out a whole thing?
Well, I'm happy to speak to that briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Lauren. So I thought this was stated. I'm not even sure why we would be stating it again, certainly as an amendment, because it's not a change to anything. It's just a reaffirmation of something that we all already agreed.
Why don't I?
No, it's
I'll
just
propose.
statement.
I'll propose an amendment, because we're kind of just discussing the amendments, which is okay, isn't it? So that we note that that remuneration for iwi representatives was confirmed at the governance and delegations at the council meeting of whatever the date was. 24 November. Instead of B. And so people can know where to look back to. If they think, what's he getting for this, it refers them to the paper that sets it out. Councillor Kirby, can I just finish off this? Please, Jocelyn?
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
Same matter.
Okay, I'm taking Councillor Kirby now.
Yep, I'm happy for that. I'm just trying to think back to our briefing on process of a motion, an amendment, who can speak to that, and then who can recreate the amendments. Because what we're actually suggesting with that particular amendment is a removal of the original recommendation B, or a note added to that saying that it was already.
I think
Sorry,
the mover and
probably
seconder
getting confusing.
can accept an amended, can move an amended motion. They can accept, that was said at the beginning of that briefing. That's the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
Just talk to the mover and the seconder, see if they'll accept it, and then just move it like that. And I don't think we'll have any procedural challenge on this if we just move B, a different noting. But good point. It can be a bit neater and tidier if we move proper amendments, so we can have a little chat about that. Councillor Pravanov.
Yes, so I just wanted to raise some of the wording around B if it's going to stay. So there you've got meetings. So it's actually the committees and the subcommittees that these people are on. And then the other thing is too, in this paper, which sort of relates to this clause, there's no mention of the grants allocation committee. And so by actually the terminology there, it actually only refers to the ones that are actually discussed in the paper. So it's 7.6. Okay. Okay, so they're all there. But I think the word meeting, like to have it considered to be changed to, I think they're all committees and subcommittees.
I'm not quite understanding what the request is.
Well, okay, so I thought it was going to be amended, but obviously you're going to replace it completely. So then that's fine.
It's along the same lines.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
I think we're all okay with it. So I'm going to move those motions as amended. I'm going to put those motions as amended. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Thank you. And congratulations and welcome to our first two iwi representatives, and thank you for the work that's gone in. So now we move to our notices of motion, 11.6. We've got 5.5 minutes, folks. Page 143. Councillor Hanford.
Yeah, we might have to push our strategy ops and finance further, but anyway.
This one's a no-brainer.
So I seek to move today that the Kāpiti Coast District Council endorses the Make It 16 campaign to lower the voting age in Aotearoa New Zealand to 16 for both local elections and central government elections. Now, we've had quite a bit of kōrero on this topic today. We've traversed many of the different kind of reasons and things that would feed into both potentially our decision here today to endorse it or potentially not. But just to kind of highlight a few of the points that Caden Tippler so eloquently put to us earlier this morning to remind councillors of potentially some of those reasons and my intention behind bringing this to our table today. So, as mentioned, it seeks to call on Parliament to lower the voting age. They have the authority and the jurisdiction to consider that, and it would take a 51% majority at a local government level and a 75% majority at a central government level, a 75% majority. We know too that the New Zealand Supreme Court has ruled that preventing 16 and 17-year-olds from voting is an unjustified age discrimination and therefore a breach of the Bill of Rights Act. So it's a matter concerning rights and in this case a lack of. And so my intention behind bringing this to our table today is kind of based on some kōrero that I have had to answer the question that was put to Caden about their engagement directly with young people in our district, that I have had with young people from all three of our colleges, Ōtaki, Paraparaumu and Kāpiti College, and also have had with some members of the Youth Council, and would also like to highlight too the kind of long-standing commitment and understanding that Kāpiti Coast District Council has to work alongside young people. That commitment and that continued focus through things like our Youth Council, our Youth Action Plan, our MOU now with Kāpiti Youth Support, and mahi we do in partnership with organisations like Te Puna Oranga and Zeal. We also, as a table, have consistently had an understanding of, we've sought an understanding of young people's views and focus in conversations when we talk about consultation and engagement. So this motion is very much to kind of bring that to the fore and allow us to, to put forward our perspective and what will be a consultation that the public will also have the opportunity to feed into as it goes through select committee. So this is our opportunity to set in place what we would want to have in our submission, but also to recognise both the importance to our young people here on the coast, to give them that opportunity, those who wish to take it, to have a say in decisions which very, very clearly create the future that they will be inheriting, and it's an unjustified breach of their rights that they currently don't have the opportunity to do that through voting. So I would like to put this motion on the table.
Are you moving the motion,
I'm
Councillor?
moving the motion, yes.
I'm happy to second it. And can we treat that as your right of introduction?
That can be my right of intro. Can I just add one quick note to that as well? So Caden Tipler mentioned this morning that we've seen young people across New Zealand, but also locally, very much rally together and rally around causes that they are passionate about. The Kāpiti Enviro Youth Summit being an example where young people came together to both educate themselves and also their peers about environmental degradation in ways that they can all be a part of the solution. We're seeing, schools across our district and classes who are very much engaged in social issues and who have presented petitions to Parliament, such as our dyslexia petition that Mike Stiles, who was here earlier on today, was also a part of, and young people showing up and truly being on the front lines of some of that mahi. And yeah, this is kind of one small way that we could recognise that and give it a more structured, or give it the potential to have a more structured voice within our democratic system in New Zealand. We talked about those various countries who have also lowered the voting age to 16, and the impact that has had on ensuring that not only young people feel heard, but actually that decisions that are being made in spaces like this one that directly impact the lives of young people and the services that they use and the spaces that they call their own alongside the rest of the community, that they actually have the chance to have a say. So I look forward to the debate and the conversation, because I think it's an important one to have, and I think our community will have the chance to also feed into this kōrero through submitting to select committee, and that's entirely their right to be able to do that, which will happen early next year. So,
thank you, Councillor Hanford. I feel like a lot of the conversation happened during public speaking time, so this is only a part of the conversation that we've had or are going to be having today. I think I'll go next. I'm not seeing any lights on, and I've got just a couple of things I'd like to add. I've not much to add to that kōrero, because covered a lot of the important issues there. I'd just like to draw out one of the points, and that's about submissions. So I've been a couple of times at the select committee speaking after 16, 17-year-olds who've made submissions on really important legislation affecting our country, and the quality of those submissions and the thought that's gone into it and the understanding of the legislation and the issues is just absolutely up there, and for those people not to be able to then vote on those issues, to me, it's kind of nonsensical. They can drive a car, they can make their own medical decisions. There's all sorts of things, important decisions that young people get to make. So why don't they get to help choose how their lives are run in this country? So I have no problem supporting this. In terms of not having a background paper and not consulting, I've got something to say about that as well. I think we're not just elected to run an organisation, but sometimes we're elected to have an opinion and to express our principles on things. And this is one of those times. So it doesn't affect the finances of our organisation. It doesn't affect the operation of our organisation. It's not something I would expect our council staff to be spending time preparing reports or doing consultation on. It's what you kind of call a principal vote. You know, it's something that we decide to do to support a certain cause or to support a certain kaupapa, and to use our influence that we've been elected to use to progress society in a way that we think it should progress. And so therefore I have no trouble accepting this motion, which is why I co-signed it, and to support it today. Because I sometimes think we need to show and say where we stand on things. And sometimes also we need to act in a timely way. And this needs to be progressed. It doesn't need to be consulted on, papers. It's not our job anyway as an organisation to do that. So very happy to support this motion today. And I'm seeing a couple of other lights on. Next, Mr. Mansell or Bede? Mr. Larissy.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you've touched on a couple of things that I was going to comment on. For me, fundamentally, this is an issue of justice. We've had a recognised breach of a right, and we need to remedy that breach, and that requires a just act. So I think really what I want to make a plea for today is a justice for 16 and 17-year-olds of this country to have that right. The process of consultation, I totally agree, Mayor. I think we can't go out and do full consultation on every little matter that comes across the table. We are elected to exercise our judgment as well. And there are times when that needs to be done. It's been signalled that this would be a conscience vote at Parliament, not a party vote. So that tells us, as you say, it's more of a principal issue. One thing that I picked up from our speaker this morning, he talked about making decisions consistently and referred to the Te Urahi decision. And he said that was put on the table for more information and the same thing needs to be applied. And I think that's a compelling point. What I would say, though, is that I think the Te Urahi decision is a very different type of decision. As you pointed out, that requires budgetary considerations that aren't at issue in this decision. So we don't need to be compelled by that decision. There's also other issues where that submitter hasn't called for us to be consistent with where he could have made that call. So I don't think that you people who are going to make this decision, not me, I don't think that you need to be particularly compelled by that kind of argument. And I want to encourage you all to support this motion because I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Bede. Councillor Coe.
Yes, look, I do have some concerns about this because I see myself as being here to represent my community, and I think that to some extent, yeah, well, I mean, I do have a personal view on this matter. There is a process in place for next year whereby people will be able to have a say on the matter, and I'm just wondering whether we are jumping the gun a little bit in terms of preempting community views on the issue. So I'm just really flagging that as a concern that I have. I'm caught in between on this issue, and at this point my feeling is I will abstain on voting because of that conflict. Thank you.
Fair enough. Councillor Cooper?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As pre-warned or discussed earlier, I'd like to bring a procedural motion, and I'm at your hands as to whether you want me to speak to the reasons for it or wait until we find a seconder in the room.
Are you wanting to move that now, or are you signalling that you will do that further on after a couple of other people have the opportunity to
noticed
speak?
there was no one putting the
got a couple of other lights now. So, do you want to?
I think I'll do
he
it now,
hasn't moved
actually.
it. He hasn't moved it. You'd like to do it now?
Well, I think if the people who want to speak want to speak to the affirmative, then they can vote my motion down and then speak to it in the substantive motion. I think that
Okay,
would be
well,
fair.
so do you want to preamble your...
Yes, and it will take 4 or 5 minutes. I'll try and be as quick as I can, but for me, this is probably the biggest constitutional issue that this council will vote on. And so I just ask that you bear with me for a second. Firstly, I note, so I actually will be moving to leave this on the table until the Independent Electoral Review Panel publishes its findings in May next year, 23rd of May, I think they're due to report back. Firstly, I'll note that Wellington City Council has opted not to endorse the Make It 16 campaign, and listening to Tory whānau yesterday, she indicated that because it was the politics of it and the optics of it, so she's chosen not to endorse it. So for me, this is not about the rights and wrongs of the campaign, it's about the process on a major constitutional decision that essentially we have been asked to make today without any really forethought from our members. So the Independent Electoral Review Committee was set up by the Justice Department to review the election laws in New Zealand, including the voting age of 16. The review's scope is huge, covering almost everything to do with running elections, including the voting age. Therefore, it will be in a position to comment
Sorry,
on
Councillor Cooper, could you
unintended
just...
consequences.
Sorry, Councillor Cooper, could you just hold fire for a second? Democracy Services wanted to give me a bit of procedural advice.
Sorry.
Thank you. Just pause. Sorry to
That's okay.
interrupt your flow.
Connected.
So my advice here is, I mean, I was kind of wondering about it myself. My advice here is that we're kind of straying into debate on the issue rather than usually a procedural motion is quite a simple reason why you think we shouldn't be making this decision today. Okay. So just, if you could just kind of simply state why you feel like this decision shouldn't be considered today, and just try and keep that quite brief, or else we're kind of making a procedural boo-boo by allowing debate.
I will try my hardest, Your Honour. Sorry, I didn't mean that rudely. I just was lost in the moment.
Yeah, Bede's closer to that than I am.
So I guess my point is that this is a major constitutional issue. It's a highly politicised issue. We've got the PM saying that she's going to bring a motion to Parliament, and we've got the right side of the House.
That is kind of debating the issue. Yeah, you're kind of debating the issue. What we need is a reason why we can't make this decision today.
Okay.
I know it's a tricky one, but I want to err on the side of caution.
Okay, I'll come back to it. There is a review coming early next year that will give the full details of the understanding of the argument. We haven't got iwi present. We talk about iwi consultation and giving them a voice, and we haven't even spoken to them. And I think we should, and I think that's wrong not to. My submission is that this is bordering on a political
No, that's not about today.
Oh,
That's in general.
Okay. All right, I can't say that. What can I say? Come on.
I think you've given some very good reasons why you think that we can't consider this today.
Simply, we haven't consulted the community. As a highly technical and constitutional issue that I think deserves a little bit more thought than throw it on the table, and it locks us into a submission. The motion locks us into a submission before we've heard the evidence-based review that's due in May, and I think that's premature, and I think it would be wrong for us to do that.
Okay, so do you want to move a procedural motion now?
Yes, please. I'd like to move a procedural motion. This substantive motion lay on the table until after the Independent Electoral Review Panel publishes its findings in May 2023. So it would be bring back to our council June 2023.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pravanov. Is that okay in terms of the the procedural motion? I would have thought it's just a date, but it could be until a certain event has occurred, I think.
Oh,
Just getting a little bit of advice.
yeah, I'm happy to seek direction from Democratic Services.
Which is what he did for Tūruhi, and just leave it on the table, or you could actually direct it to a specific meeting.
So you either let it lie on the table or you name a specific meeting.
Yeah, okay. Lie on the table until the Independent Electoral Review Panel publishes its findings.
Is that okay? I think that's okay.
Is that okay?
I'll accept that. It's been moved, it's been seconded. We have no debate, it being a procedural motion, so I'll put that now. All in favour, this is the procedural motion to let this lie on the table. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? No. Okay, we've had a division called. All who voted aye, put your hands up now, please.
I'm just going to go around the table. So this is for aye. So Councillor Cooper, Councillor Pravanov, Councillor Spires and Councillor Coe.
All who voted against, put your hand up.
Councillor Wilson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Coford, Councillor Kirby, Councillor Hansford, and Your Worship, the Mayor.
So that procedural motion is lost. We now go back to the substantive debate. And I think I have Mr. Mansell next.
Thank you, Your Honour. Your Worship. As a person who doesn't get to vote, I probably shouldn't have a say, but I have no issue with this, but I just wonder whether 4.2 needs to be split between the voting for central government and local government, given the difference in the majority and supermajority that is required to change those. I think it'd be interesting to have 16-year-olds vote, and I think it might capture them into our voting system a lot earlier, and hopefully they will stay on, because frankly the 40-odd% that we got this time was pathetic, and we were one of the better ones in the country. So anything that we can do to improve democracy has to be good, but I just wonder, given that there is people with probably better minds than mine in the past have decided that there is a difference between central and local governments, whether we need to consider a difference between central and local government as well. Thank you.
Good point. Who's next? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for moving this, Councillor Hanford. I have taken some time to speak to a couple of the 16, well actually younger than that, 15 and 16-year-olds that I know, and interestingly for me, 100% of the two people I spoke to were anti this idea, primarily because they were viewing some of their colleagues and friends and thinking I don't want them voting. I personally am in support of this. I have one question though around number 4 on this this motion that has been put, because the debate so far has said that there will be no cost to council in regards to this, but if we put a submission in, there will be some level of cost of time for whoever's going to put that submission together. So I think that needs to be noted as something about this motion. That will be some cost to council for staff time, unless one of us councillors wants to put our own submission together for that. There are also, we don't know the dates for that, but there's some detail around point number 4 that we're probably missing in terms of detail on when the timing, etc. for that would be, and what load that would put on our staff to put that in within the short time frames that those submissions often take. But as it stands, outside of my comments about 4, I'm happy with 1, 2 and 3.
I can take them separately if that helps. Who's next? Councillor Wilson.
I was just reading a headline that said middle-aged white men overrepresented in election candidates. There's a big photo of Sophie. Yeah. But she's probably right. Couple of things. One is really some interesting stuff that I didn't know that 16-year-olds can do. Those are some of the things I knew that they could do, but I didn't know they could get a gun licence. Apparently they can. So they can shoot things. The one thing that sort of struck me about this is there seems to be a fixation on 16-year-olds. Now, I have one of my sons who was very politically astute, I have to say, as a 16-year-old, as a 14-year-old actually, is really onto it. He actually wasn't able to vote for the first time until he was 22, because he was born in December of the year that he of the election, right? So it was just after the election. So he didn't actually, he was 22 before he could vote for the first time, and yet he was very, very astute. So what we can be talking about here is people who are almost 18. But if you're born in November or December or whatever, you know, so it's not just people who just turned 16. We're talking about 17. And geez, if you ever wanted an example of a 17-year-old, who was the smartest person in the room this morning? That kid, the 17-year-old. I mean, wow, fantastic. So clearly they're not all running at the same speed, but then neither are we. Half of us. Yeah, exactly.
Can we keep the conversation moving, please? Because we're really we've got to get to the end of this and do another one in 10 minutes.
I'm making the point here. Half of the people who could vote didn't. You know, so we don't have. It's not like people over the age of 18 have any kind of moral authority on this. So, thing about consulting. How would you meaningfully consult? I just don't know how you would be able to do that, short of it costing a lot of money. And one of the appeals of this is that it actually isn't costing us anything to do it. So, so just a couple of things that Sophie might want to consider is in 4.1 of the motion, in support of lowering the voting age to 16 for both local elections and central government elections, that you might want to make that an and or, because the local government elections could quite easily be a win with 51%, and the central government is almost certainly going to be a lose at 75%. So if your motion, and this is making a submission to a select committee, if your motion connects those two, and it's not separated out. So I would be separating out the motion about local government, which requires 51% threshold, which is likely to get through, and 75% for central. Anyway, that's just you might want to think about that. And one last point is the fact is our Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, has told us that we are in breach of the Bill of Rights, and as Bede has already pointed out, that needs to be sorted out one way or another.
I'm going to go to Councillor Halliday next, because we've already heard from Councillor Cooper a wee bit.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, and I'll be pretty succinct. I just want to thank everybody for the information that they've put forward. Bede, you gave me some very interesting insights here, so I appreciate that. Glenn, thank you for the information that you sent through as well. I found that very insightful with regards to things. There was one thing I did disagree that you did send through on. You made a note that we are not a tool to place pressure on central government. I disagree. I think it's exactly what we are. As a tool to be applying pressure where we think pressure needs to be applied. Three Water springs to mind. We heard from a very, very astute young lady, a very, very astute person this morning. And I'll be supporting this motion moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Thank you for being succinct. Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you. So two very quick comments. So similar to Councillor Kirby, I've done my own little survey as well, and the outcome was the same. And I will not use the words that were used by the ones I spoke to about their peers of that age voting. The other thing, on a more serious matter, looking at the motions here, because this probably will pass, 4.4, suggesting that the provision of the civics education in secondary schools across the country should accompany the lowered voting age. It may well not pass through Parliament, but I do actually agree that civics education should occur regardless or not whether the voting age is lowered. So I'd like that that section of the motion to be amended, please, to ensure.
Are you moving an amendment?
Yes, I'm moving an amendment suggesting that the provision of the civics education.
Or only Sophie can accept an alteration to a notice of motion. So do you want to make a suggestion to Sophie and we'll see if she accepts it?
Yes, I suppose the easiest option is to put a full stop after the word country. So it means it occurs regardless of whether or not it actually passes.
Okay, cool. Got that, Dem Services. We are removing the words should accompany the lowered voting age at the end of the notice of motion. Councillor Cooper.
I'll make this quick.
Please.
I'm not sure how many of those in the room have actually read the Supreme Court ruling. I have, and I just note with interest that point 2.2, the Supreme Court noted that it is intensely and quintessentially a political issue involving democratic process on which there are a range of views. It actually went on to say under point 6.1, in discussing change, in general terms, the current electoral review was seen as a better avenue to pursue this change. Now we have this independent review that takes the political aspect completely off the table, and I just don't know why we're waiting until that review is tabled. I think it's, Nigel brought up the point around meaningful consultation. We have got meaningful consultation taking place in an independent electoral review. I'm not asking council to go out and do surveys. We are having this across the country, and I think we should wait for that. So, thank you.
Oh, no more debate. Right of reply.
I will be very, very brief. Just to address Councillor Wilson's question around potentially separating out in 4.1 local and central government elections, I feel like we can probably do that through the submission and just make that pretty clear. So we'll keep the motion, that part of the motion as it is. And in terms of 4.4, thanks Councillor Pravanov for your suggestion. That's been addressed, and thank you also to Councillor Halliday for specifically feeding in that point in there around civics and giving it, I think, the kind of the voice that it needed in my ear. So that was greatly appreciated. So just 3 key points to summarise. As the Mayor mentioned, this is an opportunity for us to put our influence to action and to take a stand and to put pressure at a time where I think pressure is needed and will potentially go some way to hopefully influencing the outcome. But if it doesn't, then we can at least say that we've done what we can to improve democracy and also to address that fundamental human rights issue. So, that's us. I will put it to the vote, or you do that.
No, I do that. Your turn will come very soon. Very soon, I hope. So I've actually 1 to 4 have been moved and seconded, so they will be voted on together. So I'll now put those 1 to 4 on page 143 of Councillors' agendas. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? A division. All who voted yes, please put your hands up. You're not allowed to vote, Bede. You can put your hand up anyway, but you won't be counted. No, don't.
Councillor Wilson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Coford, Worship the Mayor. Lawrence, I always get you on. I've got you all in my Councillor Kirby, Councillor Hanford.
Okay, and those who voted against?
Councillor Cooper, Councillor Pravanov, Councillor Spies.
And we note that Councillor Coe abstained. Yeah. So we now need to, I think we need to open the strategy and operations because it's now within half an hour, nearly half an hour since we said we'd start it. So Councillor Hanford, would you like to open that and propose to adjourn it, if you don't mind?
Yes, sure. So just reopening the Strategy, Operations and Finance meeting from our adjournment, and would like to adjourn again until 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that's fine, because we'll probably need a little break anyway if we finish early. So we now move on to the second notice of motion, the whale song notice of motion. Councillor Halliday, page 147 of the agenda.
Would you like me to speak to this, Madam Chair?
Officially, what should happen? Should he get a seconder and then speak to it, or does he introduce it and then move and second it? Okay, so that's been moved by Councillor Halliday, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Right of introduction. We'll do it properly this time.
Just a clarity scenario here, Madam Chair. Obviously, I'll do an introduction here, but from a question or answer perspective, how does that work if people want to ask questions at all?
As there's no paper, there's no question and answer. It just goes straight to debate.
Thank you. I just want clarity on that. Okay. Look, I've brought this motion to the table mainly due to my frustration at getting a partnership type arrangement or engagement with this project. In my opinion, and that of many in the community, support for this project is strong. We have high-powered local businesses involved in the working group who have been constantly frustrated by the lack of KCDC support, even though this project had full councillor support in the last triennium. We have been pouring staff and financial resources into the bottomless pit of the Gateway project, yet here we have a world-class project that would see a significant drawcard created on the Kāpiti coast that our community can be proud of, with substantial economic spin-off. We are not being asked to contribute financially, we are being asked to partner. Our lack of commitment in this space has already led to missing out on a potentially substantial grant due to KC lack of formal support. This motion puts in place the required support and also ensures that this project is given the respect it deserves and pathways to be actually involved in council planning. I would also suggest that both a governance and operational representative be offered to the working group if this motion is successful. Thank you very much. P.S. I hope you were happy with the information that was sent through in relation to this as well. And thank you, Mr. Mendoka, with regards to just checking that the information had been sent through. And I should have sent that through to the senior leadership team as well, which I will do in the future.
Does anybody else want to contribute to debate on this topic? Yep. Mr. Mansell, if you do want to contribute, press your button on your microphone. Thank you. Oh, Bede.
Yes.
They're sharing a microphone.
Just want to really show some support for this idea. I think I remember this idea coming out years ago, and my first thought was, God, I think Ryan's dad's smoking crack. What a crazy idea. I think back then they were talking about installing them on the beach. I love big, crazy ideas. I think that's the kind of thing that excites me. It excites other people. Look at the quality and the calibre of the people who are pushing this idea. This is not some schmucks that have got small businesses in Raumati Village. These are big business people, big level creative people, local hapu. I mean, we're talking about, like, this is a good, solid team with everything they need behind them, except the one missing thing, the council. I personally think that this is the sort of idea that if it's completed, it's the sort of thing that we will be excited about, we'll be proud of as a district, and it won't be long until we're telling everyone in the world, come and see our whale sculptures in Kāpiti. So I can't think of a single reason why this wouldn't be supported. So please vote for this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this as well. I thought the presentations this morning were incredibly professional from Marco. I was actually particularly struck with Takahi. I didn't get her surname, but Takahi. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Takari. Well, I didn't quite hear it. That's, yeah. And the Puketapu Hapu story, and particularly around the Wharemaku stream, and the fact that this is, we're talking about the connectivity of a cultural centre. This is a really significant project. I think it's fantastic, and the idea that we as Creative Kāpiti, and I'm a big fan of marketing us as Creative Kāpiti, and I think this contributes to that. The only thing I heard against it was about this idea that somehow the business plan was wobbly, but it didn't seem to be wobbly to the Tourism Innovation Fund. The only bit that wobbled was KCDC not giving it some support. So I wasn't impressed by that at all. Barry Cleverly, I thought he made a really good point about, again, connecting the whole of our community. Richard Taylor, well, he's got a wall of Academy Awards, so he's pretty, he knows what he's doing in the space as well. So it's just that the utter professionalism of the people involved just gives me a huge amount of confidence that this is a project. If we, as a council, say, yeah, we think this is a great idea, and that if that's going to help open doors, which it looks like it is, then we would be silly if we didn't do it.
Councillor Coe.
Yes, look, I'd just like to pick up on Steve LaHood's comments this morning. And, if you look at this whole thing about marketing, if you like, a district or a town or a city, then this issue of having something tangible that captures the essence of that place is really, really important. It's one of the most valuable ways in which you can tell a story about a place. And we've been harping on for decades about how do we tell the Kāpiti story. And to me, this is a fantastic opportunity to tell the Kāpiti story. The issue of the business case, I think, is a red herring because, there is no financial exposure or risk to council in terms of supporting this. The only risk we would have is that if it does eventually fail, then we've back to something that hasn't worked out. But at least we've given it its best shot, and I think almost certainly if we don't support it, it will fail. Let's give it a chance. Let's give them an opportunity to make it work. It may or may not work. But as I say, there's very little risk to us. If it does fall over, let them have a go. I mean, Marco is one of the most resilient people I've ever come across. I mean, what he has gone through to pull this together, it's been hundreds and hundreds of hours of work and of his own money that's gone into the project to date. And I think at the very least we can allow him to give it a decent go.
Okay.
Hi, I'll be quick. The thing that pricked my ears up was over 2 million people have been through the exhibit in Coastlands, and there's not one single negative feedback or review, and I think that was absolutely staggering. Only thing that staggered me more was the lack of enthusiasm from our tourist board people. That to me was staggering. I think this could be incredible for our community, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Okay, so we probably don't need it now because we're last. So I'm going to put that motion now. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. So now we move to confirmation of minutes. Confirmation of minutes, page 147 of elected members' papers. Can I have a mover for the recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting of 27th of October 2022 to be accepted as a true and correct record? Moved, Councillor Hanford. Seconded, Councillor Kirby. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. I don't think we have anything. We have no public speaking time. I'm actually going to remove public speaking time at the end of the agenda because nobody ever comes and it's too long to wait anyway. And we've got public forum happening before the meeting now anyway for those things. So we won't have that anymore. So we have no public excluded minutes. So now we move into public excluded. Can I have a mover that we go into public excluded, please? Is that what you're doing, Councillor Pravanov?
No.
That's Councillor Halliday's moved. Councillor Kirby seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. We're now in public excluded. Can we have the live streaming off, please?